Good morning. It's 9 a.m. I'm Kay Williams, Chairman of the Properties Committee, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. First of all, please silence your cell phones if you haven't already done so. Welcome, all of you, and those online. You will have an opportunity to ask questions on each agenda item after the committee has completed asking their questions and making their comments. Anyone in the audience that wishes to speak will come forward to the microphone over here at the podium, sign in, give us your name and rec card number, and you will have 2 minutes. As some of you are probably aware, we have expanded our goal of transparency and resident participation by allowing you to, at home, write in questions. There is about a 30-second delay of when they come in through us here so we can answer them, but we will respond to them. With that, welcome. First item on the agenda, in 201, the minutes of the April 6, 2023 Properties Committee meeting. Does anyone have any additions or corrections? Seeing none, they will be accepted as written. We have a lot of housekeeping things under 301 and so on. We've talked a little bit about the microphone usage. Just as a reminder, all of you committee members, be sure and get close enough to your microphone so it can be heard and be recorded so folks at home hear what you're saying. At this time, I'd like to introduce the committee members and have each of you just say a little bit about who you are and what you've been involved in here. And Tom, you want to start?
Sure. Tom Jones. Currently, I'm the president of the Automotive Restoration Club. I belong to the Metal Club and the Wood Shop. I've been on the Properties Committee in years past, so I have some background in that, and that's mainly what I'm all about.
Hi, everybody. I'm Alan Schlemmer. I'm one of the newest members of the governing board, and as part of that, also on the Properties Committee. My wife and I came to Sun City West in 2015. We did do a 2-year hiatus where we left to get closer to the grandchildren and then realized that we really missed Sun City West, so we came back. But at any rate, and outside of this, I'm involved with the Del Webb Sun Cities Museum pretty heavily, and I'm also a member of the Pride, so you'll see me out there on Saturday mornings and so forth, and I'm really excited to work with all of you.
Thank you. I'm Kay Williams. I am a director, again, on the governing board, chaired properties previously, and am honored to be able to do it again now. I think we've got a great committee, and we're looking forward to a very good year. Thank you.
I'm John Nicholas. Been away for just a little while, former member of Banking and Finance Committee, also Properties Committee, served on several subcommittees over the past years. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Nancy Hunt. I've been here for 9 years. I am a past facility services manager for a school district of 40,000 kids. So my passion lies in the facility usage and the maintenance departments. And this is my 3rd term on property, so hopefully I get it right this time. Thank you.
We have 2 directors who are still on vacation that are excused today, and one who is online. Sherry, can you hear us?
I can hear you. So my name is Sherry Jones, and I was a professional project manager in my careers. I'm involved in Sun City West in a lot of different events and clubs. So I've been on the properties for about, I think, 6 years or longer, and I really enjoy the Properties Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Okay, item 303, you have all received the committee roster. Just as a reminder, this is for your use only and not to be shared. 304, the using BoardDocs and accessing YouTube. You were all given a packet bit of a cheat sheet to help you figure out how to use BoardDocs and YouTube. If you have any questions about this, please contact Karen, our executive assistant, and she can assist you. 3.05, you each received a copy of the committee member handbook, which includes the committee roles, responsibilities, and limitations. I hope all of my committee has had a chance to read that. The following is a section out of the bylaws that defines the responsibilities of this committee, and I would like to just share that with everyone so that you know what we're supposed to be doing. Properties Committee shall meet with the association facilities project manager, facilities maintenance manager, and others suggested by the general manager to evaluate and make recommendations on association proposed new construction, major maintenance, or renovation of physical assets of the association. This committee shall evaluate and make recommendations on capital budget items related to properties as proposed by staff or the governing board. This includes association facilities, space requirements, including space for new clubs or the reuse or reallocation of current club spaces in conjunction with the Charter Clubs Committee, beautification, architecture projects, and other tasks as and if requested by the general manager and or the governing board. And the last item, the committee shall conduct with management an annual inspection, review of all association facilities to determine their material condition, to include any changes, repairs, and maintenance deemed appropriate by the last business day of November to facilitate the capital budget process. The committee chair will submit the findings to the general manager and the governing board by December 1 during the initial phase of the general manager's budget planning process. Any questions from any of you on your responsibilities? Okay. Mr. Carl, are you ready?
I am. Thank you, Director.
Carl Wilhelm will be giving us the facilities maintenance and capital report since over the summer up to date. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you. Properties Committee, it's good to see you all back, and we look forward to a season working together. We've had a lot of capital projects completed since the last meeting of the fiscal year 22-23. So I will point those items out that are different compared to what we've begun now in the fiscal year 23-24. R.H. Johnson, maintenance yard, storage roof, and gate enclosure was completed on 6/16. This was a reuse of our existing and some newly purchased storage containers. And we built a roof over the top of a couple of them and a fence enclosure to secure our vehicles, golf carts, and miscellaneous equipment. The tennis tower at R.H. Johnson required a room partition, so we built a glass room partition across the counter system where the monitor sits, and the club uses their club track check-in facilities because a portion of the day of that tower is closed and locked off from the equipment, so the club can still utilize their front area as a club space. That was completed on 6/14 of 23. Social hall hardwoods, the activity center hardwoods, and the racquetball area hardwoods were all completed between 7/6 and 7/12. The racquetball hardwoods actually got taken down all the way to new raw wood, so that was a sand and seal, a little larger project, and we have its first coat put back on. The metal shop asphalt seal and stripe project was completed 7/9. This is where we seal coat the asphalt after the first year of installation of new asphalt. We do that on every new asphalt surface. And the reoccurring surface after that will be 4 years for the next few cycles to keep it maintained in great condition. The swim and fitness pool deck resurface, the new rubber decking was completed on 8/11. The maintenance yard, property fences, and gates are a project that are in progress. It's approximately 350 linear feet of 8-foot tall fencing with about 900 little spear points on it, similar to what you see at the Beardsley storage areas. and that's in progress. Should be done in a few weeks. My report was provided early, so there's a few changes in the next line items. The sports pavilion bowling lanes replacement, originally reported as project in progress. That project was completed 9/8, along with the ball returns, completed 9/8. And during that project, we also replaced the bowlers areas and foyers, the entries on both ends of the sports pavilion's flooring. Reasoning for that was after the new lanes, new height was established, the old flooring and transition strip didn't align the same. And in the fiscal 24-25 budget, I would have proposed the bowler area flooring anyway, so we just shortened that cycle by 1 year and made it complete by during this project as an efficiency and necessity for the alignment of the two floors. When we were palleting in all the equipment, you know, some of them pallets were 2,000 pounds of new flooring and pin center decks. The old carpeting shifted and wrinkled, and it was time for replacement anyway, so we made that happen. You have beautiful walk-off carpet in those areas. And then we occurred a little damage in the LVT area of the memos lobby, so we made that flooring match the bowlers area, and it looks beautiful. So we did a tour with quite a few folks yesterday from yesterday's sports pavilion committee, and everybody was quite impressed with the project, and the bowling alley is open and operating. The parking lot asphalt mill and replacement project is in progress. You can see all the equipment being run out there now. Our tentative completion date, weather and primarily weather cooperating, is between 9/18 and 9/22. The bocce facility has a turf replacement project in progress. Tentatively, we are going to be extending that project completion date to early November. I just got word yesterday, informed the club president. We had a great conversation, but all the amount of Trex boarding to surround those courts, there wasn't enough material in the state to get the right color, all in one uniform pattern, so they had to go to the manufacturer and actually order it, and it's coming mid-October, so that was a little delay. And then there was a flaw in the turf, so they're remanufacturing the turf, and that is going to fall in alignment with the project schedule, but it'll be extended to sometime in November, and everybody's aware of that. Moving over to Kuntz, we had that asphalt put in about 18 months ago, maybe a little longer, and this year was its first seal coat, so that was completed on 8/18. Moving to Palm Ridge, the aquatic center entry, stairs, loft, and flooring has been replaced. That was completed 6/27. There also, we have hardwoods in the Summit Hall. Those were completed on 7/26. There's a project that's in progress. That's the Summit Hall window shade blinds replacement. They originally were supposed to be done 1st of September. The manufacturer had a measurement error, and they are fixing that right now and coming back out tentatively 9/27 to complete that project. We had all the pickleball facility windscreens replaced on 8/30. Moving over to some golf areas, Stardust Pro Shop parking lot asphalt seal and stripe was completed on 7/30. Deer Valley got its first seal coat after installation of new asphalt the prior year on 8/5/23. And Grandview is listed as project in progress, but that has actually been completed on 9/7/23. So that lot is back open. The restaurant is operating, I believe. And we have a couple small little projects going on in the golf lab that'll be open soon, if not already. I'm not certain on that, but we put some new flooring in the golf lab due to the aged out carpet there. And that concludes my portion of the report. Been a busy summer.
Are there any questions from the committee of Carl? Carl, I'd like to commend you and all of the staff and all of the things you have accomplished. Nobody can say you took the summer off. So thank you and all of the folks that have made it happen.
That's correct. It was a team effort.
Everything, any questions from the audience? If so, please come up to the microphone. Again, state your name, your rec card number.
Hi, my name is Sue Smith. My rec number is 114783. This is the first meeting I've ever been to, and my gosh, did this gentleman have a busy summer. I have one question for you.
Yeah.
Did you put the misters back up around the crooked putter?
Honestly, I can't answer that. That would be a golf operations step when the roofing was done last year. So if it's not there, I'd have to inquire about that and report back to you somehow. But
It was taken down in May, and for those of us that eat outside, you can't eat outside in this sweltering heat, so I was just wondering about the status of the mister replacement.
so I'll collect your information after and then get back to you.
Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to 402 for a report from Russ Boston.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
All right, so since our last meeting, we have replaced one HVAC unit at the Coons Softball Clubhouse, 3 units at Pebblebrook Pro Shop, 3 units at the Coons Women's Boomers Club. We finally got all the backstroke warning flags installed at Coons and Beardsley Pools. Repaired 2 major electrical shorts, one lower R.H. Johnson from the Sports Civilian Activity Center, and the other one was Social Hall to Lapidary, so that had us hopping. 3 major water leaks, one Social Hall main line, Beardsley Park, and Coons between the pool and softball, and they always pop up when you least expect it. We installed the outdoor beer cooler for the Lizard Acres. We installed 2 ADA-assisted door openers, 2 at Beardsley and 1 at the R.H. Johnson Broadcast Club and 1 at Coons Art Club. And since then, we've added 2 more, 1 more at Beardsley for a club, and we finished off out of the 3 club rooms at Coons. We left off 1 of them for this year because we did 2 per a request from a resident at Beardsley. So we finished that one up just a month ago. We are currently painting the exterior of Palm Ridge, finally. This will be a long ongoing project that you will see going out throughout the months. We did, however, just finish the aquatics building, so we are now on to the summit building. We are currently adding built-in barbecue grills at Beardsley Park at 3 different locations. 1 has just finally finished. I'm not sure if the grill's installed yet, but will be shortly, and then we'll work on the final 2. And then lastly, I don't talk about these because I could bore everybody forever, but the majority of our work comes in the form of MPS work orders, and we accomplished 2,662 of those last year. That completes my report.
Anyone on the committee have questions for Russ? Ellen?
Russ, thank you for your report. As you know, we've had an extremely hot summer, hotter than I think in the history of histories. You had talked about HVAC replacements and so forth, but obviously these are big facilities to keep cool. Did we have any unexpected issues or concerns come up over the summer with regard to our ability to maintain the comfort level within the facilities?
We've had a few just in the last 2 months. Yeah, and I think it's that heat factor that's been the cause.
Yeah, okay. And one last quick comment. I want to applaud your team and the rec centers for keeping the community aware when we've had some of these unexpected issues like the power outages and so forth. The use of social media, getting the word out. I just want to commend you guys for doing a really good job on that and letting people know what's going on.
Thank you, Alan.
From your fan club, Paul Burrier wants to thank you for the flags. He's not here this morning, but I'll make sure that he's aware of it at the pools.
Thank you. He's still my only member. He hasn't gotten anybody to join yet.
Any other questions from the committee? Any questions from the audience? Okay, moving along. Next item is 501, and that has to do with the Properties Policy Review Plan. As I read to you earlier, it is one of the major responsibilities of this committee to do the review of all the properties and report back to the general manager and governing board what we find. I hope my committee is listening carefully. I am assigning Tom Jones, John Nicholas, and Alan Schlemmer to review policies FA 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and report back to our committee on the October 12th meeting. I am requesting that John Hobold, Nancy Hunt, and Tad Pollock and Sherry Jones will review policies 6, 7, 9, and 10 and present their recommendation of any changes at our meeting on November 9th. Karen very generously just happened to have put all of those documents in the packet before you today, so you don't have to look them up. You can just get to work. So thank you, and that'll be the quickest way to get it done. And of course, you've said, well, gee, K can't count. What about 8? FA 8 is on our agenda today. So that will get us going and get our job done, because we need to have it done by December 1st to report to the general manager.
Madam Chair, is the names you listed, are they in the packet or?
Yeah.
There you are. The
They're
names
all in
are
the
also.
packet.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Thanks to Russ Boston. On 502, Russ has done all the scheduling for our tours as required. We will be doing those in October, and all of you have your information that was mailed to you earlier. And now for what you've all been waiting for. There was a work study group that was created through the Chartered Clubs Committee. That a work study group take a look at our space utilization and many other issues that have to do with club usage and all of that. There were 5 of us. Tom Jones and I were representatives from this committee, and there were 3 from the Chartered Clubs Committee. We are honored to have with us today the chairman of that working study group, Nick Turner. Nick has managed to put together a report. The full copy is in your packet, committee members. If you haven't had time, I did make sure that I sent a notice to all the committee a week ago to remind them to review this before today's meeting, because there is a great deal to absorb. So with that, Nick, show is all yours.
Thank you. I'm not going to go through every slide. I'm going to actually move through this very quickly on the assumption that the committee has read it. Members of the audience, I don't know whether they will have had the opportunity to read it or not, but it has been online as with the Chartered Clubs Committee on BoardDocs and also here for this committee. So I don't know who's driving the slides. Thank you. If we can go straight to number 3, why is the committee here? We were asked to deliver a set of requirements because of some issues which were coming up around the areas of space utilization and club participation rates. So we were asked to produce a list of requirements that would help answer those questions. We were not asked to find any faults with Club Track, and we were not asked to do any work on actual space allocation. So it's not our job to say which clubs get which space. It was our job to help define requirements for software which will help the recreation centres make those decisions. So that's what we were asked to do. And if you notice here from the second bullet down in the second half there, where as part of the scope, chartered club, cardholder private usage, and non-cardholder and external organisation usage of association spaces and facilities, when you start thinking about that in terms of software required to track, it becomes extremely complicated very quickly. So as you see when we get through into our recommendations, we're not actually suggesting that any software goes that far.
So if we can move on again, just to actually what we found, which is on slide number 8, please, Russ. We formatted this in the terms of business problems. What are the business problems that the recreation centres are trying to resolve? And using that as the basis for coming up with the features and requirements that are necessary. So as we did our work and we interviewed staff as well, we had 2 members on the committee who were from the Properties Committee, 3 from chartered clubs, a member of staff, and we also interviewed about another 5 members of staff and spoke with them about, you know, their issues, the issues and what they were trying to resolve. So we came up with the list of problems, and as you can see, some of these are, if you like, being overcome with better reporting, which is going on at the moment in the work which is going on in the recreation centres. So some of these problems, if you like, are partially solved. Some of them may be completely solved by the software which is currently used and the reporting methods which are currently used. But these are the business problems that such software has to resolve. And if we can move on to slide number 9, please, Russ. Here, the problems are, if you like, reversed. They're being reported as it should do this. The reason it should do this is because that information is not available. So, as you can see, there are issues here about ease of use with non-computer literate users. For those of you who've used ClubTrack, gone to scan into with Club, press your club, and walk away, it may seem the most simple thing to do, but some club monitors, for example, can't recover the screen if it's lost, despite instructions and training, because they just don't have the computer skills and the natural instincts, if you like, within a PC to get all of that information back. So that, again, leads to inaccuracies in the data which is being captured. So if we can move on to slide number 11, we uncovered 10 basic features which are needed to solve those problems. Some which are obvious, like user security. Some which may be less obvious, like the technical requirements. Whatever solutions we have or continue to use need to be supported by the staff that we have here at the recreation centres, and they need to meet whatever the technical standards are for those products. We also have, issues, as we mentioned, around usability, data administration, and so on. Now, those 10 features spawned 108 requirements. We prioritize those requirements by the list you can see there on the right. You have copies of those requirements in your packs. They're available online for anybody to go and see, and we've put them into 3 different sort orders, basically. There's a numerical order, so in case somebody comes along and says, requirement 57, so you can go straight to 57, and then we have them in order of priority, and we also have them in order of those features. So if you want to see what we thought about data accuracy, you can just go down to the data accuracy section and see all of those requirements. And moving into the meat of it, slide 18, please, Russ. We produced the requirements as requested. We've delivered those requirements as requested. And as we went through the whole process, we had lots of ideas, questions, suggestions, recommendations, and we formed those into some options and recommendations. Now, options is something that the governing board and the recreation centres can choose to do. A recommendation is something that we think they should do, but it's not necessarily strictly related to the scope we were given. But just thinking about the problems and thinking about what should be done, we came up with these options. Now, these are not in any order of priority. They are in an order of increasing complexity. And complexity, if you like, is also a measure of cost. In software, the more complex it is, the more it tends to cost. So the first one is do nothing. We just keep ClubTrack. We keep using it as we do now. We don't expand its use in any way. And we didn't recognize this, we don't recommend this, mainly because the entire reason that the group was put together was because what we're doing now isn't quite working. So to keep not quite working, we don't think is the recommended way forward. So we don't recommend that we just keep everything as is. Option number 2 on the next slide is to just really bring back the scope of the solution. Only use ClubTrack to track the use of shared spaces. So you don't use it in a dedicated club. So you're not going to be using it when people go into the ARC, because that's a dedicated space, because the major issue is in the capacities and usage of the shared space. As a member of a club which is changing its location in shared spaces, I understand that problem. Some clubs are growing, some are not growing, but how many people are actually using those rooms when they are dedicated to a specific club for 2 hours, and then another club for 3 hours, yet there's another club just across the hall which is bursting at the seams. So how do we get all of that information together? And that's a key element of the question, the business problems that the recreation centres have. But this would also reduce future costs and so on. Again, we don't recommend we pursue this option. We recommend that there are some other things that could be done, in that area. Option number 3, on the next slide, please, is cancel it. We don't recommend that either, because there is data coming out now from ClubTrack, which is good, it's usable, and it's providing some benefits. Also, it probably, ClubTrack, if you cancelled it, would probably need to be replaced by something else. So you'd have a void in between those periods. So our recommendation would be only do that if you have an adequate replacement. The next option would be to enhance ClubTrack to meet its original aim. At the moment, it's basically providing which members of the club are in the space and when they scanned in. We don't know how long they're there. So that, again, causes some issues in a dedicated space in a craft club, for example. Somebody scans in to do some private work. We don't know whether they're there for an hour, 4 hours, 10 minutes. We don't know. So it's difficult to gauge the usage over time of that space. If we can do some enhancements to, improve the information and the data that ClubTrack is tracking, then we can do that. That again is a recommendation, but we only recommend this if the governing board is prepared to fund it, because it will require enhancements. Those will take time. Those will require work from IT and so on in working with the vendor on those enhancements. So we don't recommend that people say, yeah, we'll enhance ClubTrack, and then don't allocate any funds to do so. The next option, number 5, this is an interesting one. I personally like it. Power BI is a tool that the rec centres already have, and it's already being used in this area. So, for example, when the water fitness and aquasizers and so on go into a pool, and they scan in and they say, I'm here for the aquasizers class, that information is recorded in TEG. It doesn't go into ClubTrack. Casey, however, can get that information by using the reports which are combining data from both ClubTrack and from TEG together into one report, and that's done using a tool called Power BI. And there are other things that could be done there. So, for example, if you believe on average that somebody going into one of the craft clubs stays there for 1 hour or stays there for 90 minutes, you could start making assumptions, building up a little piece of data with some assumptions in, use that reporting in Power BI, and then you've got some more space utilization over time information that can be pulled together from multiple sources in Power BI. So we recommend that this is something that the governing board suggests to the recreation centres, that they actually investigate this option. There are some cons, which is that the in-house skills we have in Power BI are very limited. I believe there's only one person who really knows the tool. So if we are going to do that, we may have to boost those skills or buy them in from external consulting. The next option is one, again, that we do not recommend, and this is just expanding its use to all users of recreation centre facilities. So this was in the scope we were given. It's something we have put into the requirements. They're lower priority requirements, and we don't recommend this. We don't think there will be value for the cost of doing it in tracking the use of ClubTrack. For example, well, I say expanding the use of ClubTrack, expanding the use of software tools to monitor the private usage of recreation centre facilities. So somebody books a room for a wedding celebration. Do we really, and they book it for 50 people, do we really care if there's 45 there or 50? We don't, really. And to get that information would start involving lots and lots of expense. Option 7, the automatic capture of attendance data using smart cards. This is something we discussed, decided we would not include, and then a little bit later during interviews with staff discovered that staff were also thinking along the same lines. This solves your problem of knowing how long somebody's in a room because you're automatically tracking when they walk in and when they walk out. It would require investigation, expense, investment. The technology exists today. The question is whether it's at a price which is going to be of value. But it is something I think that the group decided is something that the recreation centres should look at. So again, there's just a recommendation here to do an investigation. Now, we're not saying spend $200,000 on consulting to decide whether it's a good thing or not, but it's something that could be looked at, internally by staff and if necessary, others at low cost, just to determine what is the technology, where is it going, how could we use it, and is this something that we can do? One of the other kind of benefits that you get from that, if you've got a large club with big attendance and lots of guests, as people walk into the room and their presence is detected, you could cross-check that against the database of the club membership, and you could automatically know whether you've got guests there. So if you're counting head count for a quorum at a club meeting, you know exactly how many people you've got there who are actually club members and how many you've got there who are not club members. One of the issues with open meetings, a club general meeting is open to the public. If that meeting is voting, how do you know the members of the public are not voting? You need some ways of controlling and tracking those information. The next option, option 8, build your own. Again, this is just something that we suggest is investigated. One of the things that we've learned, and I think we understand, is that even though we are a big organization, even though the recreation centers look like other recreation centers, no software vendor provides software that's designed for organizations like ours. The market just isn't big enough, and everybody is sufficiently different that having a standard approach to a lot of these is not good. However, there are tools around which you can use as a basis for it. And again, this is something we recommend the recreation centers look at. A lot of these things are called low code or no code because you build them. You basically point and click and build the screens you want and the reports you need. You add, if there's a data column missing, you just add the column of data and put it onto a screen and start capturing it. And then there is a whole base of modules that you can begin and adapt. So for example, there's a university event organizer. You could use that and then change the name of student to card holder. So it just says card holder, it doesn't say student, as well as adding all of the other kinds of information you need. It's not a cheap solution, but it would, if you like, make us masters of our own destiny rather than reliant on putting customization requests into older versions of software from current vendors. So that was the end of the kind of options we think which are available to the recreation centres for that software. And then we just came up with a few current recommendations, which you like, which are even further away from the scope we were given. But if we can move on to the next slide, please, Russ, number 27. Reevaluate the current automatic reports, and actually this is already happening. There are, new and better reports for the club offices are in production. I think one of the issues is that, and this actually, if we move on to the next recommendation, Russ, is on the second recommendation, is that the software was acquired for the benefit of the recreation centres. It wasn't acquired for the benefit of clubs and club offices. If moving forward, however we move forward, the more benefits we can provide to clubs and club offices with the software, the more likely they are into buying into its use, and the more likely they are to make sure that the information that the clubs put in is accurate. Some of it is inaccurate through lack of computer skills, misuse, lack of understanding, and some of it is inaccurate because some clubs feel the need to pad the numbers. And so the more benefits you can provide to them, I believe the less likely that's going to happen. And the kind of benefits that I'm thinking of is real-time data. Some clubs pay their class teachers according to the number of people in the class. You could produce a report from ClubTrack there and then in a PDF, give it to the class teacher, and you've got some documented proof of the number of people who were there in the class without people having to do head count. Quorums for meetings. You've got a public meeting of your, member meeting for your club. You've got guests. You've got potentially just members of the public there. How do you determine whether you've got a quorum? And how many people are there for the club? The next one, recommendation 3, is to investigate enhancements for some of the uncovered issues. One of the, and this is in the requirements. One of the issues that ClubTrack has is it has no context of where the terminal is, or the club that has the room at that time. So when you scan in, you say, I am here, and I'm here for the Contract Bridge Club. Some people press the wrong button. If the solution had an idea of who had that room at that particular time, you wouldn't need to do that. You could just scan in. And that would then speed the process. Now in the summer, for 50 people coming to play bridge, that's not, and arriving over a period of 30 minutes, that's not a problem. For a meeting, a member meeting of boomers or pickleball, where there's over 1,000 people in the club and several hundred might be going to the member meeting, it takes a while to get everybody in the door. And if you have the PC here and the touch screen on the wall behind them, even though 2 people can use it at the same time, they're very close to each other. And I did a little bit of quick math. If you have 200 people and it takes 10 seconds for each one to scan in, it takes you 30 minutes to get them all through the door. Next recommendation, number 4, self-service for club officers would reduce the effort, the management effort, the people effort at the recreation centres. There are security issues with that. Humans, sharing of passwords, that kind of thing. But the more self-service you can do, the lower the effort required in the recreation centres just to administer the application. And not all club officers are going to have the computer skills to do it. So there will still need to be some assistance from the recreation centres. And the final recommendation is there is a vision for IT within the recreation centres. I think it, and we think it needs to be a little bit more. Oh, sorry, number 5. I skipped one. Standard approach to payments. There's lots of topic and talk going on, of course, about credit card fees within the recreation centres. This is a different problem. Some of the larger clubs have to handle large numbers of checks and large amounts of cash. Some clubs won't take cash. They will only take checks, but they like to take credit cards. Some clubs okay taking cash and checks, but they also like to take credit cards. It's difficult for the clubs to be able to do that for themselves. So again, our suggestion is that the governing board ask the recreation centres to set up a standard methodology by which the clubs can take credit cards. We're not saying that the recreation centres take those payments on behalf of the clubs. We're saying that the recreation centres have a standard method of implementing it so the clubs can then implement it for themselves. And finally, we believe there is a vision for IT within the recreation centres and where we're going and how that's going to pan out in the future. We just think it needs to be more widely disseminated and understood. I heard somebody suggest at another meeting, I forget which one it was, which was, is there an IT committee? Now, I don't know whether we need one or not, but that struck me as being a poignant kind of question. I don't know whether it's something that the members need to do or in terms of governing board or a subcommittee or whatever. That's not for me and the group to say. But as we talked about just capturing information from who's in a room and when they're in the room, and how that information is used and reported, and easier ways of capturing that information, we ran into, well, it would be good if we knew who was using the room. That would help speed the process and make the whole thing simpler, but that means you have to integrate with scheduling. And some of this information is captured in tags, so you have to capture with tag and so on. Now, we as a group didn't know. We understood that there are questions around upgrades. When should we upgrade? How should we upgrade of various systems? How do we roll forward customizations from those systems into future releases? And we thought it would be good if we just had a background and a picture of what the future of IT looks like in the recreation centres. And that's as far as I'm going to go at the moment. I would say I'd like to thank the 2 members of the Properties Committee, Kay and Tom, who were on the working group. The members of the Charter Clubs Committee are on the working group. Casey, who was on the working group, because we worked very hard every week for 6 weeks or more. And it was quite intense putting it all together. And it was a lot of hard work. So I'd like to thank everybody as well for that, and for the staff who gave us their time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and don't go away. We'll start first with questions from this committee. It was, I could say, a labor of love that we did this, or maybe just plain labor, but as you can tell, there was a lot of preparation and time spent in putting this together. I do want to mention to all of you that the entire document, the appendices, and all of the other parts of our work are available on BoardDocs as an attachment to today's agenda. I know it's a lot of information to try to absorb, and so if you want to study it in depth, it is there for you at your schedule of when you have time to look at it further. With that, questions from the committee? Alan.
First, thank you for the report and for all of the work your team put into this. When Kay asked us to read this ahead of the meeting, I sat down the other day to do so and quickly realized that there's a whole lot of stuff in here. I'm really compelled by your recommendation number 6, and that's going to be the genesis of my question. Because I agree with you on the need for a comprehensive IT plan and sort of a strategy. Are you thinking that if we were to pursue the other recommendations within your report, would this be the place you would want us to start? Or, because I'm thinking that would be the logical beginning, is to think about what is our overall IT plan and then go into, then how do the recommendations fit into that? Or are you thinking we would do some of those recommendations in conjunction with also building out a comprehensive IT plan as you proposed in recommendation 6?
I need to be careful because of speaking for the work group or speaking
understand.
personally.
I totally understand.
Yeah, I believe from the work group, I'm looking to see if there's anybody here, but I believe the work group would suggest that there are some areas, some things you can do tactically in the short term, and they should be pursued, but no big decisions about the future, if you like, are made without that fitting into a longer term plan.
Okay.
And that might be, who the vendor is, what the technologies are, is it supportable by the rec center staff and so on.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Thank you again.
Yeah.
Great job.
Yeah.
Any comments, John?
Okay. Had one question here. Well, actually, I had several of them. Read it 2 or 3 times. Found it extremely interesting. Don't always agree with all the recommendations, but that's the way it goes. But overall, it was a great report, not ours. But one question I had, has anybody in the last year or so taken a look at what Sun City and Grand are doing?
We did not do that. I don't know whether other people in the organization.
Okay. Anybody aware of asking them, looking at what's going on, and whether they have something that matches what we're trying to accomplish?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, I just thought it'd be something that somebody should take a look at. Maybe they have some ideas and approaches that we haven't looked at. Maybe we'll take a look at what they're doing and say, it doesn't mean anything to us, it doesn't accomplish our goals. But at least we have a chance to take a look and see what's going on with other large communities.
Yeah.
Okay.
Casey's going to respond.
Okay.
Good morning. I can tell you that we haven't been to Grand or Sun City, but I can tell you that we are quite a bit more advanced than they are. So it's the beginning process, and IT, Katie took this on, gosh, I think it was right before COVID, maybe right after COVID, I can't remember, during COVID. And so during new trials, we find that it can be a little complicated, things are missed, so that's where we're at right now. But as far as I am knowledgeable, I don't think they're where we are at as far as technology.
Okay, that's one thing I was wondering about, is that it's somebody taking a look at it to find out whether they're doing something similar, have done something similar, and whether we're ahead of them or we're behind them. And basically, you've answered the question.
Good. I can tell you that their IT folks have come to ours asking us what we are doing.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Nancy?
You guys on this committee, this was a brilliant report. And I cannot believe how much time and effort it took to come up with all of these little things that are working and not working, and then adding in the information that you believe that we need to make future decisions. So bravo to you guys and you were in air conditioning, so that is even better. A couple of things. One of my concerns is the people, the membership. They don't get why we want to know when they're coming and going. In fact, it kind of angers them. They don't understand that we have future decisions to make, that facility usage and usage of rooms is so important. They like to float in and out. But if I would bring this up to 10 of my neighbors, nobody would know what I'm talking about. It's not in the paper, it's not in the rec news. Nobody understands why it's so important that I need to know why you're going in, and I need to know when you're coming out, when you're going in, when you're coming out. We haven't taught that to our members at all. So there's a little bit just for the board and for the rec center. They don't know. And like I said, they're not real happy. Oh, now they want to know when I leave, you know? So there's a bit of a problem there. The smartphones and that stuff is a really great idea, but I don't think that would fly in this community. There's privacy concerns. I like the idea of chipping everybody. I don't have a problem with that, you know? But I think there's going to be some problems if we start chipping people.
It would be chipping of their membership card, not
Yeah,
them.
chipping of the card.
Yeah.
Some of that, I think, in the future is a really, really good idea. Other than that, I think that facility usage when we rent stuff out to other people, that can be tracked. That's a simple program that we probably track already. I recognize this program as coming from a university or a school because that's what I did for 17 years. It's exactly the kind of data that I worked with, although my program was much more deep, and you could also build it as you went. So there's a lot of modules. There was a master plan module, there was a capital reserve module, there was a module for maintenance that you could put your projects back in the back burner, bring them up, that sort of stuff, and a lot of facility usage information in it. So I recognized, as I read, that it's pretty limited, and it's pretty hard to make those programs work for Sun City West. You know, there's a lot of different things that we need. I like the recommendation 7 by Microsoft. I like that. Oh, there wasn't that recommendation in
Is
here?
that the Power? Is that the Power BI?
Yeah.
If that's the Power BI one, we already have it. It's not a case of
It's
acquiring it. We
so
already
complicated.
have it.
Yeah, it's just very complicated. It's hard to get users who would know. And to get a program that only 1 or 2 or 4 know really hangs us up if you know, the bus hits them all. So that's about all. I just really, really can't believe how much work you guys did and put it in such a succinct form to read. I thought it was an easy read, and it raised a lot of problems, a lot of things we need to solve. So thank you again for Nick and the members. It's fascinating to me. It's kind of what I did. So you did a great job.
Yeah, the one additional comment on the other, on talking with the other communities. There was a suggestion that if everybody throws in some money, we could get a vendor that would build a solution that all of the other retirement communities hereabouts could use. The problem with that is that because of their structures and requirements and the way they do things, we're all slightly different. And there's no one-size-fits-all solution. But I know that I've, in my own past when I was working, I worked for a company that did that for some specialist retailers who didn't have any off-the-shelf software. 5 of those retailers all put in $250,000, and we built the software that all 5 of them could use.
So you're hireable? We can hire you?
I am no longer
That's what you're
hireable now. No. In my professional role, I didn't develop software. I told developers what to develop.
Just the mind we need.
Yeah.
Just one other comment. This should have been done before we bought the other software. So I'm really happy that heading into it, we have really dug in and we really know what our needs are to a large degree. Wish we would have done that first and then bought software, but at least now we get to track back, the board does, and we know kind of what we're looking at, and you guys have given us some really good options. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Any questions or comments from the audience? Lisa?
Thank you, Kay. Nick, great presentation. Thank you so much. Thank you to the working group that put the whole package together. I have, the majority of my questions I will ask tomorrow at our workshop, but the one question I think it was really important I asked today of you, because I think you'll have the knowledge to answer this. By the way, let me state, Lisa Vines, Governing Board Director, 123774. So my question is, does this Club Track software have like one main hub that it converses with throughout when a person scans in at one facility and then maybe runs to another club because they're at one event that's having fun, but yet another club that they belong to is having a general meeting and they need a quorum. So now they have to get up and run to this other club to scan in. So the software, does it have the ability to know that they are already scanned in at this club and now they've ran over and they've scanned? Hello? Okay.
It just records the scan and the club selected.
Okay.
So the time and date of the scan at the first club is recorded. The time and date of the scan at the second club is recorded.
Okay. Because this is happening at the clubs currently. So.
Well, I think, yes, but I mean, the issue, I don't know that that is an issue. If you're sitting in your quilter's club room working away at the sewing machine, and then somebody phones you and says, you're also a member of, the bridge club, and the bridge club needs a quorum. I don't think that's an issue.
It is if they're not staying for the meeting.
Yes, but that's something.
This is a problem we do have, so I'm just curious.
That's something the club officers need to manage.
This is where that's really important, that one option where we need to know that they're being scanned out. So
yeah,
that's a really
if that is
important
happening,
option.
that's an issue for the club officers.
Right, and so it's really important that we need to know the option that they're being scanned out when they leave that club. So.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
perfect. Love that. Thank you.
Any other comments from the audience? Ellen, have we had anything coming in on YouTube on this subject?
We must have dazzled our audience on YouTube with all of the information. We have no comments, no questions.
They were so impressed, they've no comments. Okay. Our job here today is not to correct the report or make changes to the report. Our job today is to see if we have consensus that we move this forward to the governing board for their review and action. What is the feeling of this group? Do we have consensus to move it forward or not? Okay, we will be moving this forward to the governing board for their continuing processing. Thanks again to Nick, our superstar. I can't say enough about what an incredible experience it was working with someone of his expertise on this project. I shudder to think what it would look like had Nick not been on that committee. So thank you, Nick, for all the time and effort you personally spent outside of our meetings, putting all this together on the computer, all the charts, and gathering all the data that you did. We couldn't have afforded you for all the work you did. It was absolutely wonderful. So thank you so very, very much. And this will get moved now to the governing board for their consideration. Okay, we are now at 5.04. This is just a follow-up to last year's Properties Committee, just on a couple of loose items that I had just asked Russ to just give an update on. 5.04 was the hot topic when we were finishing our meetings last spring, and that was the vandalism in the parking lots and the cameras. And my other question to Russ is, Do you have any idea how many incident reports we've had, like between when we last met in April and now, as far as vandalism and security issues?
Not that they get sent to me, but I have heard of none.
Okay,
So the cameras we added out here at the parking lot have worked. At least I'm going to assume so. We do have other areas in mind, and we're utilizing existing systems to keep the cost down to achieve the same thing we did out here out front. And then we have the mobile unit still. We're going to try out at some point. We've come down to where we'll rent that for a short period of time just to keep that cost down as well. But we've had no instances that have caused us to have to pressure this any quicker than we're moving now.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mhm.
Do you know yet where you're going to locate that portable unit when we do get it? Or have you given that any thought yet as to,
None.
okay,
None whatsoever. Probably is going to be at Palm Ridge, just because that parking lot is so far away from the building. That's not something we could get away with how we're doing it here with cameras mounted on the facility.
Mhm.
So it'd probably be best utilized there. When and how would be the factor in the future to figure out. So,
Committee have any questions of Russ about this? All good? Okay, Carl. We're now at 5:05, and Carol's going to talk about the new capital project discussion for fiscal year 24-25.
Thank you, Kay. Just a little understanding, education on our project planning process, or actually the capital budget process. This document here is being presented to every committee in its entirety, the same way, same information for consistency and discussion between all committees, and then also to the governing board. Each and every month for the next 2 months, October and November, you'll have this document again with a revision column showing any changes. This document is fluid. I and other department managers and the accounting teams are always working on costing. There's a lot here to disseminate and make sure that we're getting all of our costs correct. I'm in discussion with vendors all the time, generally from July all the way to the time that this gets its kind of final nod and gets handed into the general manager December 1st. So you can expect that. The Properties Committee virtually reviews 90% of this list, so you'll see columns off to the right that show B&F understands this list in its entirety because everything has a cost associated. There's a column for properties. I'll highlight those areas in my conversation today. And then there's the moments where it goes to sports pavilion discussions, charter clubs, and other committees. This document also has 3 unique sections, new. The section in blue and green that is right from our reserve study modeling tool, and then an allowance category. This year I could say that starting in July, I was pretty surprised by how much capital came up in our reserve modeling tool, and knowing what some of the other departments' capital requests are that I don't manage. And it was shocking. It was quite a large number, almost to the point of $14.5 million. So they just kind of catches you off guard, and you want to make sure that there's a really strong review of all these things that just naturally come up in our reserve tool. So that work has been done. So over the last 2.5 months, Russ and I have walked all of the capital projects that him or I would manage together, and we did our review area. So I have a section that I'll go over, and that's in gray at the end, about things that we deferred, because not everything, just because it comes up in the tool, requires replacement in the year that it comes due or the useful life ran out. So with that being said, I'll get started. We have our new capital section. We have the ongoing discussion from last season. Sports Pavilion Committee asked for the Lizard Acres Bar room renovation and equipment. I am still in process of working on equipment, layout, design, and at this time, I'm still reporting that to be a budget line item of $225,000. Moving on, facilities maintenance has a request for a tractor and backhoe. Library expansion renovation, over the last year and a half or two budget seasons, there was presentations from Katie O'Grady's team and department at the library for a discussion for master planning on the library expansion for a new interior design, make it more like a community social, a community center, as opposed to the old rigid library that we're used to in our youth. And then some expansion ideas for multi-purpose spaces. And then the idea of maybe an outdoor venue, seating area for reading, coffee, enjoying the outdoor, and again, that social environment of the library. Currently, we are at a
Are you okay? You need to stop.
request for information on architectural, and we had a meeting with an architect this week. We got very good positive feedback. We have decided to move forward with our discussions and in receiving their work and first level deliverables, if you will, so that we have an understanding of what next step costs are. So in this particular budget, we are right now parking $70,000 for anticipated architectural costings, design costings, and this might change once the homework from that first discussion is completed over the next 2 months. So this one, you might see a little change late in the review process of the capital requests. Moving on to the tennis facility at Kuntz. The general manager, myself, and staff have had a discussion that it's time to bring up the Kuntz facility, utilize what we're underutilizing now. Right now, the Kuntz tennis facility sits as 6 tennis courts. 3 are unusable. They are chained off for non-play for safety, and the other 3 have been repaired to a condition that tennis can use those facilities. There was even some a time ago where we painted some dual lines in case pickleball wanted to expand a little bit and play in there. They found it to be undesirable because the old Pro Bounce just doesn't react well to pickleball play. But we have our occasional tennis users that utilize the facility. There's been a handful of discussions of, the growth of pickleball. So we feel that at this point, we're asking for architectural discussion and design documents to consider renovating that facility, tearing out the old asphalt and Pro Bounce system, putting in a post-tension slabs throughout, keeping 2 tennis courts as the initial discussion, taking a 3rd tennis court, making it a social area similar to our other tennis and pickleball venues where they have a place where they can gather, and then taking 3 tennis courts and converting them into 12 pickleball, and seeing what all the effects after having that information shared to architect and what results we get. So we're asking for $50,000 to begin that conversation in FY 24-25. Over at Beardsley, the request has been to permanently put in an iron fence, 4 foot tall, weaved throughout the landscape areas of Beardsley Park. This eliminates the yearly labor involved and the cost for replacing the green ugly snow fence and steel posts that we put around that park. So this will be a nice decorative fence, simplistic, but weaved between the landscaping, so no hard line fencing along walkways, but off of the landscape, and basically an 800-foot long L from the back west wall or east wall to, in between the sound stage and the, not interrupting the memorial garden there, and then following it along the sidewalk a little closer between mini golf and tying it into the horseshoe area, so that we have an enclosed area that would help with events, keeping that secure. It's 4 foot tall, the same height as the horseshoe fencing, same similar design, appropriate gates so that vehicle traffic can still get down to the park and either provide the event equipment needed for a show or maintenance. So 800 foot of fence, 4 foot tall, 6 or 7 gates. Moving on to the R.H. Johnson Metal Shop. This is one of the rare buildings where we do not have climate control functionality from facilities maintenance. Facilities maintenance does have climate tech control systems throughout the rec centers. Over the last season that the metal shop's addition has been completed and all the years previous, the shop ran its air conditioning at an appropriate level, but now that the addition is there, another garage door, we feel it's important to get it on the climate tech system and have it observed, managed, and make sure that we're not being inefficient in how that space is operating air conditionally. Facilities maintenance needs a flatbed trailer for their forklift. The current flatbed trailer is just wore out. The forklift is heavy. It was probably undersized for a forklift in the first place, but we've got maximum use out of it, so we need a new forklift trailer. The Leather Room Club is our only CR13 for this season. They have the Leather Room, the Leather Club has come and had an expanded need for how they take care of their leather goods and needs a larger exhaust system, $7,500. That concludes the new for the season's requests. Moving on to the blue section, this is directly from the repair and replacement tool. I'm going to go through these a little bit quicker. Over the last 3 years, we've had multiple discussions with the softball club about expansion, new items, and one of the items that has always been recognized as a recreation center's responsibility has been the outfield fence. It's in pretty battered condition, and we believe that it's time for replacement. In that effort of replacement, we would like it a little taller to make sure that it any development in that area, a taller fence would keep balls from, going beyond the field better than it does today. Can't guarantee no ball's going to get hit out of that park. And this one's a little complicated, so I'm still working with vendors on it because the cost is significant. We'd like to go from 24 feet to 30 feet. If we maintain it as a 100% chain link fence, it's costly. There's been discussion to maybe take that next 6 feet and do it in a netting. So I'm working through that now, and there'll be more information as the months go by. Moving on to the R.H. Johnson Social Hall ceiling renovation. This project came about from Properties Committee 2 years ago, and it started off as a lighting conversation. It was asked that when we do the LED improvements, that we would improve them to the point where they were dimmable and new lighting. The structure does not allow for it. The infrastructure for electrical wiring to those lightings does not allow for the dimmability. So I have not been able to accomplish a transition from the old fluorescent bulbs to LED at all, just because they don't make fixtures that fit up inside there, and again, not accomplishing the dimmability. The conversation then expanded to, is it time to renovate the ceiling similar to what we did in Lizard Acres Pub 5 or 6 years ago? Getting rid of the old acoustic style V-shaped ceiling and going to a little taller, flat roof, acoustically appropriate and sound engineered ceiling. So that's where I've been pursuing this. I've had multiple conversations with sound engineers and architects, and my results to date are nobody's interested. They've given me a ballpark figure that's much higher than what I've got on the sheet right now, so I'm trying to work through this. So more information coming on that, but right now I'm leaving it parked as $400,000 for a ceiling renovation with more information coming. Silvercraft millwork and countertops. This project is a conglomerate of items that are in the reserve study tool, which are millwork and countertops, meeting with the club and them understanding that they have this area being focused on in their next year. They have certainly brought the room conversation to a higher level of remodel. So we've had 4 or 5 meetings with the club president and a little bit of a liaison team. Russ and I have been meeting with them on and off. We are determining that the grid ceiling, which you'll see in a line item down below, will replace the grid ceiling like we've done in other craft rooms. Facilities maintenance is investigating on the conditioning of air conditioning ducting, which is not on this list. And the room also came due for its new flooring. So it's not a millwork and countertop project, even though it's listed here on this list. It's going to probably expand a little bit to more of a room remodel. The club's requests of just refacing cabinets, they would like some cabinets fully removed, and then they would like some cabinets to be fully rebuilt in a different way. They're interested in having an area that's cleaned up in their back room, so those cabinets being removed and making it a teaching area with tables. So all of these little requests and shifts are making it a little bit more of a room remodel, even though I have it written down as millwork, countertops, ceiling, and flooring, as I discussed today. So a little more information to come over the next month on that, okay? Palm Ridge, pool deck, indoor deck replacement. The only thing that's changing here is that I've got positive news. I'll report next month that price has gone down. And that would be for the request of a rubber decking that we just completed at Kuntz and R.H. Johnson over the last couple of years. R.H. Johnson Social Hall flat roof restore is simply that, a restoration to maintain our 10 to 12-year warranties on our roofs. Cardio equipment, every 5 years, each rec center has their cardio equipment replaced in each rec center, or 1 year at a time, each rec center. So Palm Ridge is the next one due. This season we're doing Beardsley. Last season we did R.H. Johnson. We have landscape vehicle equipment, activity center maintenance roof here at R.H. Johnson, activities and aquatics roofs here at Palm Ridge, R.H. Johnson admin flat roof restore. I've had discussions over the last week with our roofing consultants. I'm getting very positive news that a handful of these roofing projects will be being moved to a future date due to their current level and conditions. So next month you'll have a pretty revised list on roofing conditions. Moving on to the softball field again at Kuntz. The club came to the general manager. We called a meeting, staff and the general manager and the president of the club informed us of the functionality of their scoreboard, that it's not in the same working condition it has been for years. They are requesting a new scoreboard. They actually came to the table with an opportunity to have it funded through advertising. So we know that we have new advertising policies. So it was felt that this is best handled as this is an asset of the rec centers. And instead of treading down that trail of asking for a $50,000 scoreboard to be funded by a car dealership, right now we are asking for this to be considered as an asset of the property, and we would fund it as rec centers. The difference between the $50,000 cost and my cost of $75,000 here is simply, I'm not aware yet what the club is presenting me in a scoreboard. So I put a $25,000 assumption in case I have an electrical changes or I have any supporting structure changes. So this will be cleaned up a little bit over the next month or so too. Moving on to lawn bowling. You'll see when I discuss the the gray area of things that we've deferred, we are in a season that lawn bowling is going to have a large conversation on redevelopment. The club did come with some CR13s that we've curtailed after having a really good meeting with them. So the general manager and staff, we called the club together. They have come to the table over this last year and asked for the current grass fields to be converted to turf. It does not come at a small expense. At this point, in our best understanding, we even had the vendor from Australia that provides those materials meet with us, and our assumption that this is a multi-million-dollar turf conversion. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's not cheap. We're trying to figure out the best logistics. Is it all four? Is it a couple? But the other underlying things that are happening at lawn bowling is we have a sewer issue. Facilities maintenance is currently investigating to see what the complexity of that sewer issue is. So if we can buy time and do it as a master project, that's fine, and repair it then. But otherwise, right now, we are planning for two things from an infrastructure standpoint: a repair line to the sewer in this line item. And that the storm took down a couple light poles. After investigating their bases, they were all rusted, so we decided to take all the lighting down for safety. And at some point, we need to get conduit back into that ground. So if I were going to remove concrete areas for a sewer line replacement, I would also try to accomplish an electrical conduit for future needs, not the actual lighting program, but the idea of a future lighting program. So, and I'll discuss that a little bit more in detail in a few moments. Moving on down to, I'm sorry, the actual conversation started with lawn bowling benches. So this also requires, if you were to go out there, and we'll see this during our tour, their benches are weather, they've been weathered out, they're kind of shot. We have removed anything that is considered unsafe today, so we are safe. They have some functionality of benches, quite a few, but it's time to consider replacing them all. And big picture, if we are doing the redevelopment of that area, right now I have 96 benches as considered as the need. I have it set at the highest price, so benches are not cheap. They range from the best bench is $700, and the best cheapest bench is in the $450 realm. So again, I start high, and then we make a determination over the next few weeks and discussions on what's the right decision, okay? Moving, I'm gonna skip the Kuntz UV pool filtration for the pool spa. Admin has copiers that need to be replaced. We have some more roof projects at R.H. Johnson's, the spa building that has got stone on top and the foam roof areas. A pickup truck for administrative purposes, which I believe is a facilities maintenance vehicle. Is that correct, Russ? No? Okay, I'll get more information on that. Russ has HVAC units that are due. The pickleball courts at Palm Ridge are due for courts 1 through 10 to be resurfaced. That's just basically repainting and recoating the lines. More HVAC systems at Kuntz. Beardsley's Fitness Center, flooring, rubber, and floor replacement. We have walked that space. You'll see it during our tours. And we do believe it's due for flooring replacement with a new rubber flooring in the fitness center. R.H. Johnson Pickleball Courts is also due for its court resurfacing. More HVAC units at R.H. Johnson. The finance department is in need of new cubicles. Landscaping has a few pieces of equipment that fall different from being in the golf category, so that it's under the facility operations side of Todd's team. Palm Ridge Summit Hall Hardwoods. It's a capital project because it's taking it all the way down to raw wood. This is a sand and seal, so that lasts more than 5 years, and the expense is obviously more than $5,000. Screen and seals are an operating expense. R.H. Johnson Silvercraft ceiling tile, I discussed that in a little bit of detail a moment ago. So when we do our tours, you're going to see a kind of a very off-colored, slightly rusted ceiling from just the club's 40 years of existence. And then the flooring is in poor shape and due for, it's definitely met its useful life. R.H. Johnson pickleball courts, windscreen replacement. The screens are all dried out and ready. We just completed this same project at Palm Ridge this last season. We have an auto scrubber due for replacement at R.H. Johnson. Palm Ridge has umbrellas. This line item is going to be removed in the next month's discussion due to the cost is not significant, does not qualify as a capital project. It becomes an operating purchase. In the future, we'll combine the Palm Ridge umbrellas and these pool umbrellas and then retitle that and make it so that from that point forward, it will be a capital expense. Kuntz's Craft Rooms 3, 4, and 5, 150 chairs. The conversation as we sit today is if everybody agrees that the, quote, church chair is a very light, foamy, comfortable, easy to move by our members' chair to replace the real heavy-duty. I got to admit, they're excellently working, but you will see and feel those chairs when we do our tours. So it is being asked for these chairs to be replaced with the lighter, newer style. Pickleball shade canopy replaced. The pickleball shade canopy at Palm Ridge is ripping, and it's met its useful life in the right year, so that's up for replacement. Admin buildings, member services awnings, you'll see that they are in ill repair, and the window that's at the check-in window going into member services, we would add a small awning there. And then finally, in the operation side of things, the spa heater at Palm Ridge and some more HVAC units at Kuntz. Todd is here today in case there's any discussion necessary for the golf portion of the reserve study. I'm going to read through these, and if you have any questions after, we can have Todd come and speak to them. But Echo Mesa is due for its irrigation system replacement. Golf maintenance equipment vehicles, 23 pieces of equipment. Golf maintenance vehicles of utility carts and other vehicles, 12 and 2. Golf operations, golf carts, golf carts for golf courses. The next series of 20 carts to be replaced. I have a project, Desert Trails Pro Shop parking lot, asphalt mill and replacement, identical to what you're seeing out here at R.H. Johnson. That has already been completed at Grandview and is going to be starting next week or the 28th at Trail Ridge. This parking lot, I think, is the last of 2, so for all of our golf courses. After that, sometime in the future, next 4 or 5 years, I think is Stardust. We have Trail Ridge air conditioning units, ball pickers from Golf Ops for Echo Mesa, Grandview, and Stardust. Golf Ops has asked for furniture for the patio for at all 7 golf courses. And a pressure washer for their Golf Ops needs, and a Echo Mesa beer cooler. That concludes the reserve study list. And the last section is the allowances. Every year we place allowances, and it's averaged for the last 3-4 years at $400,000. We're tacking on a bit of thinking of inflation, so in this next season, we're asking for $420,000. These are our unknown projects, things that come up, a well pump replacement, something that triggers an idea that we need to fix something during a project that was unknown. A great example is that the bowling lanes. We used allowances to cover the bowling lane area flooring this season, because it wasn't originally an approved budget project. And that will just offset with the fact that we don't have to do it out of the capital budget next season. That's how these allowances are used. Information technology is a category, ADA compliance upgrades. I'll be doing an ADA compliant upgrade here in next week. Beardsley's Aquatic Center entry is gonna get a new ADA ramp. So these are unexpected things, but community requested taking a look at the existing ramp. And yes, it can be improved for everybody's safety. And then finally, I mentioned that we did a lot of work once this list was initially created. It's here for your review, but you can see that we have deferred things to a future date. Most importantly is lawn bowling. You see that I do have a factor for a future year discussion, 25, 26, that in this initial stage, we assume that $2 million is going to be asked in a future year for artificial turf, shade structures at lawn bowling, concrete walkway replacement with another significant cost, the significant cost for moving on to stage 2 of project planning for the Kuntz Tennis renovation, Palmridge flat roofs, or any roofs on this list would just be because we've already known that they don't need to be restored or replaced at this time. Lawn bowling, again, walking track and lighting replacement. So you take those items and add them all together. We have a big discussion over this year and next that I would definitely like us to engage in about lawn bowling so that we have some traction and discussion from the governing board over this season to help with next season's requests. And then the yeoman's work of things that, just weren't needed. So this lecture hall came due for carpeting and we deferred that to a future year. The carpeting in the Stardust Theater is in excellent shape. We deferred that to a future year. Same with the carpeting in the sports pavilion, deferring to a future year. Yes, there's small impacts of inflation on these things by deferral, but I mean, honestly, the deferral timeframes are large enough that we win when we, make sure that we're getting the most useful life out of these products. So that's concludes my list for today. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to.
Carl, if I remember last, we were talking about the artificial turf, and I seem to recall that when the softball field wanted to do the expansion or extension of the I guess backfield fencing, the height of it, we were talking about, and when that happened, that if they were going to do artificial turf, that would come at the same time, or so it wouldn't have to do one and then the other. But I just heard you say earlier about instead of chain link, maybe having the netting. Is that going to affect the outfield and the possibility of the turf situation?
So part one of your question, if this committee, after walking and touring, decides that they want to make a recommendation of the governing board to defer the fencing replacement to a year that maybe the artificial turf comes back up. It wasn't brought back up to me this season, so that's why it's not on this list. You have that opportunity to make that recommendation. It is in the tool because we did say last year that we would bring it back up this year and have that discussion again. So I count on your input, okay? Part two, it's not our intention to fully net that, but the idea of taking that, rebuilding it brand new with the right supporting posts, which is why it's an expensive project, because we don't have the correct supporting post in there now. We have modifications. Does it need to be the more expensive chain link fence? Is screen for that last 6 foot better, a better value? So we have to figure that out. So.
Nancy? Did you have a question?
I had a question for Todd.
For
Hey,
Todd?
how How about those misters over at Grandview? Have you got them hooked up? I'm going there for dinner, so
Nancy,
please say yes.
that wouldn't be Todd's area.
Oh,
That
who is
would
it
be
then?
golf
Who's-
operations, Pat.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. There's our manager. He'll know. He knows it all.
Carl's taken enough time at this meeting today that I was able to track down where are we at with these misters.
All right.
So we recently had the roof repaired over at Grandview, and the misting system came down at that point in time. We are also doing some remodeling over at the golf lab, and the compressor to the mister system is in the closet in the golf lab. Problematic? A little bit. So we're getting that relocated over to Jeff's area, over by the Crooked Putter. And Jack went out and got 3 bids for that particular project. Jack has since retired. So Mr. O'Hara is fumbling through a bunch of paper at the moment, trying to find those 3 bids to move that forward. But it was going to be shut down for the fall anyway. Unfortunately, the temperatures are what they are these days, and it's kind of ridiculous. But we're hoping to see a little bit of cooler weather, and that will be, those mister systems will be resurrected in the fall and ready to go for the spring, is the game plan there.
Hey, thank you for finding that out. I know when I go over there tonight, everybody's going to be talking about it. I'll just tell them to bring spray bottles.
Any other questions from our committee? Any comments from the audience? Carl, you and us have got our work cut out for us in the coming year and the years to follow. I really appreciate the update. Having it for this meeting is ideal because then it'll all be fresh in our mind when we are doing our inspections the next 5 weeks. So we know we'll hear more about it on the agenda for several months to come, and that's great. But I appreciate the work you guys have done already on taking a look at what can wait. Because you say, as you say, those numbers were astronomical and not appropriate for our situation at this time. So,
And if I have any good news to shed, that right now we're tracking at the same amount of average budget that we had for last year. But with the news that I'll bring in October, we should be under this
Great.
current budget.
we'll look forward to our walkthroughs with you and Russ, and also next month's meeting. The last item, I guess, is yours too, Carl. That's, again, it's a carryover from last year, and it had to do with the safety issue of the shower curtains in the ladies' locker room at RHJ Pool not being long enough. And as I recall from last year, we were basically told that you were unable to find any longer ones that were a standard length, and that it wasn't practical to relocate the bar to make the curtains closer to the floor. Have we had any safety issues or falls that we know of with that at the pool? And then also, do you have any other solutions?
So Russ and I walked it today. If Russ wants to comment, go ahead.
So my apologies. I apparently did not get our information back to the property committee, but Karen and I got together. I purchased a portable curtain rod, you know, those ones you can just put up anywhere. So we did a mock-up. Because we couldn't find shower curtains that were longer, I just wanted to test to see if lowering the curtains would actually keep the water out. So we put a curtain rod up. We those curtains to the rod, an inch off the floor, and water came spewing out. So we kind of came to the conclusion that that wasn't going to cure the problem.
Okay.
I still have that rod, and after Carl and I went and looked at it today, we thought possibly if you guys were interested, during our walkthrough, we could have that up, and you can see what we saw,
That would be great.
and we can put it to rest.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, you're welcome.
We are finally at item 507 on today's agenda. And that has to do with updating policy FA8. And just to give everyone a little background of how the draft document that's in your packet got to where it is. The operations staff, from scheduling, member services, CCNRs, sports pavilion, have worked together during the summer to try to update the policy to clarify processes that we now use, update the correct language and terminology for what we are using for guest passes. And the purpose of all of this is to update the policy so that owner members, associate members, or tenants who are in good standing have the privilege of inviting guests to use association facilities as specified. Reviewing and updated policies, of course, is on our agenda, as you've heard numerous times this morning already, and that's why it's before us today. The updated items are shown, our red line copy on the screen behind me. As we go through the list, we were trying to get the semantics to be accurate to avoid confusion. So, for example, you will notice that we talk about this being cardholder guest, daily guest fee policy as the name changes of the actual policy, referring to RCSCW cardholders other than owners or residents like it was in the past is in the first section. That's also the change that's in the second section. Again, the word cardholder in 4.1, the guest resident card guest policy. All guests of resident cardholders must be personally signed into the rec center facilities each day by recreation cardholders in good standing. 4.1.1, when signing in at any rec center facility, a daily guest fee will be paid by a resident cardholder account, member credit, or by credit card for that day only. Daily guest fees are applicable for only one day, just clarifying that so that people understand that it's not a currently other than a one-day use. 4.1.2, residential cardholders guests 16 years old and under must at all times be accompanied by an adult ages 18 and up. Residential cardholder hosting a guest shall be responsible for the behavior and the other actions of the guest while on association property. On the back, 4.1.3, guests visiting the R.H. Johnson Library facility may not check out materials. 4.1.2, guests for residential cardholders who are unable to sign in guests for medical reasons. That's a clarification. If the rec card holder is unable to personally sign in their guests because of physical or mental incapacity, a medical guest form must be obtained from RCSCW Membership Services, completed and submitted for review for all resident card holders. If approved, a medical guest pass will be issued for presentation by the guests at the recreation facilities. Again, 4.1.21, the word medical guest has been added into there for clarification. 4.1.22, resident cardholder guests 16 years old and under must at all times be accompanied by an adult ages 18 plus. The thing that's been added in here also, guest ages required accompanying adults may vary at the sports pavilion per bowling policies. And we added that to add clarification that golf and bowling are both unique and they have their own policies, and those need to be included when looking to see what your situation is to how you should be bringing people in and how that works and what guest passes work for and what they don't. So the 4.1.2.3 talks about guests visiting the library may not check out materials. And then the 4.2, daily guest fee policies. RCSCW cardholders may not purchase daily guest fees for other Sun City West residents who are otherwise eligible for elective membership in the association. We have had some issues in the past with some of our people who have rental units leaving their rec cards on the table to think that their tenant could use them instead. That's not the way that works. 4.1.2, rec center cardholders must have a recent photograph taken within the last 5 years on their rec card that they show. And the last section, 4.2.2, a daily guest fee is required for participation by a guest in all open sports activities, with the exception of bowling and golf, where separate fees are charged. And the last line, which was in question with varying schools of thought on it, and that's what we're here to really talk about right now, get your comments on it. A daily guest pass fee may not be used to participate in chartered club activities. That, for the benefit of all of you, is the full text of what is being proposed. Do we have any comments from any of the committee members at this time? Yes, Nancy.
I just have one question. You can use a credit card and pay for that day. I always load my card, of course, but that's only been at RH that I've known. I've gone to Beers and they're like, no, we can't take a credit card. Can all of the rec centers take a credit card for me if I don't have my card loaded?
As far as I know they're acceptable at Palm Ridge.
Okay, all right.
No cash.
Yeah, no
Or cash, yeah. No cash, yeah, right, not cash.
Just a
but-
Visa card
yeah.
at any of them.
And like
Okay.
you say, it's a good idea if you do expect to have guests several times during the year to just load $50 or whatever on your rec card right then. And then it's just deducted each time it's actually used and you have the balance running.
Okay, thank you. That makes it easy,
Yeah.
I think.
Any other questions from the committee? Mr. Schwinn, would you like to say something?
Thank you, Director Williams. Thank you. Point of clarification, Russ, if you can go down to the last item, please. When we talk about open sports, I just want to talk a little bit about that and get clarification. Obviously, I want to thank you all very, very much for addressing these policies because they are beyond helpful when it comes to us and how we as staff deal with the ins and outs of the daily operations of the facility. But relative to a daily guest fee required by a guest in open sports activities, just as a point of clarification, if this is not a club activity, so this is something, there's in the world of pickleball, right, there's something called the Apple League, where people play pickleball all around the valley, right? They come and go and they play at different venues and that type of thing. So if people are inviting their guests over or they're playing in a particular league, and a league is scheduling a game based on the fact that in the afternoons we have open court facilities and a couple of members invite other folks over to play pickleball, right? That's an open sport activity. Therefore, a guest fee would be required for those guests to play, correct?
Yes.
And the same thing for tennis. If the independents, it's not really a club activity where there's kind of a mutual or reciprocal agreement with another agency coming in and playing here and then playing there. These are leagues that are designed by just owner members that are traveling around 14 other associations similar to us playing in a tennis league. In the past, over the last 20 years, they basically have been just using the tennis facility free of charge. So this particular cleanup, I guess, as far as the open sports leagues go, it's going to be anticipated now that tennis players, owner members, inviting people to come and play on our campus in their independent league would be required to pay a guest fee.
That's why I pointed out this was the item for discussion as far as I was concerned out of all of these changes. I think the issue with that becomes you also have to look at the reciprocity agreements that we have had in the past for the season, as they call it, for
Right.
tennis and other sports, to go play it, for example, maybe we've got a dozen people at the most that go over and play 1 week at Sun City, and the next week, Sun City may, or month, whatever, may come over here and play, and it's on a reciprocity agreement.
Right.
And I think that's the shadowy area you've got, because particularly, you know, pickleball and tennis probably are the two that come to mind where that is more common as far as reciprocity, and again, tied in with the word league.
Right.
So-
And what we find is that, you know, on the reciprocal side, that's typically done at the club level, as opposed to independent groups just wanting to get together, socialize, call themselves whatever they want to call
Right.
themselves, and try to play in other venues. That's kind of just like a traveling group, not a club thing. So reciprocal doesn't really work in that situation. So I just want to make sure that, you know, moving forward, as far as implementation of this, we're going to be expecting these folks, independents, to be paying a guest fee.
If they are independents, yes. If they are part of a reciprocity agreement, no.
Get you?
So
Got it.
hopefully that clarifies it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Any of, Nancy?
I'm just a logistical person, and I'm like, okay, so pickleball, they have to pay a few people, so they have to go in to see the monitor down at the pool, because they don't have a monitor at pickleball or tennis, right? So if they do tennis, they've got to run up to the aqua area, and somebody has to check them in and pay the fee, you know? Go ahead, Carl. I don't understand the logistics of it.
The tennis tower during the operations from opening first thing in the morning till 11 o'clock has the opportunity to collect a fee. Otherwise, no.
Yep.
So pickleball, they would have to go into,
Yes,
Palm Ridge or
pickleball
something.
has a monitor from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., 4 days a week. Anything beyond that, they do not have a monitor out there. So they do need to come in. And in fact, at most of the time, I think even though there is a monitor out there, it would be easier to check in with the monitor in the aquatics facility than it would be for the person that's outside to collect it. So-
We're a bit unique in that situation. Some of the other venues, whether it's the Paseo Tennis Center, name another community, be it Sun City or others, typically the way those campuses are set up, that you need to walk by a control point
Yes.
to get onto one of those venues, be it pickleball or tennis. We're not quite set up that way. Tennis Center does have a tower, but again, it becomes a staffing issue. Do we want to have an employee out there at minimum wage from 6 in the morning till 9 at night? When activity is very, very light, it hasn't been the case. We kind of take people at their word of honor, but oftentimes, you know, some people don't play by that rule. So
yeah, enforcement is a problem.
it is.
And you don't
Yeah.
want monitors enforcing, you don't want custodial staff enforcing. It's going to be difficult to have somebody who's invited her two sisters over to enforce that. I just think that part is pretty hard.
That is one of our challenges.
Yeah, it is. And the courts at Kuntz, again, no monitor at all near there. Like, granted, they don't get the usage.
And the
Volume.
same with the pickleball courts in the parking lot here.
Yeah,
It's-
they don't have access to a close monitor either, and they get used a lot.
Yes, ma'am.
Uh,
Dog park. I mean, we have a lot of uncontrolled points of access to some of our venues.
Absolutely.
That is a little challenging for us.
Yeah, we do. So, thoughts from the committee? Excuse me.
I think that you've got the reciprocity, you do what I want to do. I think those have to be really clear to the club leaders, you know, and why it works for this league, but it doesn't work for these people who aren't a league. You know, it gets really gray, I think, Kay. I think that's something the board has to talk about, I guess.
All right, my question then is, are you ready to move this forward to the governing board for their discussion, or would you like to have it on our agenda for another month? Do we have consensus to forward it to the governing board as it's presented today? Just a moment.
I'll like another month. I haven't had a chance to read through this and consume everything that's in here.
Oh, that's just the one page. This
Yes,
is-
I know it's just one page, but
Yeah.
it's just,
Yeah, just front and back of that page.
yeah. But maybe we could do it next month.
Jack Leary, 128260. I'm also the chairperson of the Chartered Clubs Committee. Russ, can you scroll to the bottom of this, please? I see that the last sentence there about the daily guest pass fee may not be used to participate in chartered club activities has been struck. I strongly, strongly, strongly urge you to put that back in for two reasons. One is if by striking this, that implies that a daily guest fee could entitle an outside person, a non-card holder, to be to participate in club activities. That's the expectation that their fee would get them in. That opens up a can of worms for clubs because clubs, by definition, you have to be a member, and if you're a guest, you have to be accompanied by a member. This does not include that stipulation. The other thing that it does is it opens clubs to exposure to basically the public coming in and using their facilities. So Tom might have somebody come in off the street who's got a receipt and says, okay, I want to do something here in the ARC building. Or somebody in the wood shop says, okay, I want to turn something on the lathe, metal shop, those types of things. Those are dangerous activities. We also have rules in the our RMPs for chartered clubs that outside users may not use the facility or participate in a club that would end up excluding a club member from using the facility. So the other thing that it does is there are certain clubs who have charges for their activities. You pay a fee for participating in a card game or a class of some sort. If this statement is struck, that means that the monitors for those clubs now have to ask to see that receipt, or worst case, they have to collect that fee as well. And there's no process or no mechanism that exists today that does that. So I would like to see this put back in. Please, thank you.
Committee, what's your thought? Are you in favor of Mr. Leary's comments just now to delete that last sentence or put it back in where it now has the lines through it, the text that's in green? Alan?
I believe that Mr. Leary actually makes a very good point. I would suggest, however, that it not be a sentence tailing on to the end of 4.2.2, because that section really is dealing with more directly the open sports and bowling and golf. I look at chartered clubs as being something separate from those. I would actually recommend that that be a standalone sentence under section 4.2 as 4.2.3, and then say a daily guest fee may not be used to participate in chartered club activities, to give it its own standing rather than having it, for lack of better terms, my words, buried at the end of a section that doesn't really relate to chartered clubs.
Okay. Comments from the rest of the directors? Are you in favor of making it 4.2.3 with that last sentence, which reads, a daily guest pass fee may not be used for participation in charter club activities? All good with that? Okay, as we have consensus, we will be moving this forward to the governing board. Yes, Karen.
Example at 4.1, 4.1.1.2, where we have the asterisk on bowling. Does golf have to be added in there or not? It's been sort of talked about, but I don't see it in writing. In other words, the asterisk reads guest
Yes, I see what you're
ages.
saying. We're- 4.1.1.2 would then read, guest ages requiring accompanying adult may vary at the sports pavilion per bowling policies and the golf policies. Yeah, golf course policies. Okay, so that would then read, guest age requiring accompanying adult may vary at the sports pavilion per bowling policies and golf courses per golf policies. Okay, with those two changes, we will then be forwarding it to the governing board for further action.
Okay, and just to double check, I'm putting it in both sections, card holder, guest policies at the asterisk and
Thank
the
you.
medical one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ellen, do we have anything on YouTube?
Once again, we have dazzled them. We have nothing at this
Okay,
point.
we're batting 1,000. Onward and upward. Are there any committee comments? 6.0. Any additional comments on anything from the committee? Not at this time. Are there any other audience comments on any issue? Nick?
Yes, it's Nick Turner, 131829. I just want to add a postscript to the presentation. I wouldn't want anybody to think that there's an implied criticism of any members of staff in the work we did. I think the members of staff do extremely well with the IT resources that they've got. That's all I wanted to add.
Anyone else? Well, we have no remote comments. We have managed to get through a very lengthy agenda. Thank you all for your participation and your helping us speed through it as best we could. Our next meeting, in fact, will be October 12th at 9 a.m. in this room. We're looking forward to more information from Carl, and we'll have some feedback from our walkthroughs that we will have completed by that date. There are no other comments. This meeting is adjourned. I have 11:06.